If I started off with it, still done that?
If you weren't awake, you're awake now.
It's where you practice.
I do that every once in a while.
Can you hear us now? Keep us on our toes.
I don't know.
That's the last one.
His country club in Ireland, he has one in County Clare, and he promised to build a road from Shannon Airport all the way to Cork, and he didn't do it. That's where it ended. He improved it all the way up to the dock from Shannon Airport. He didn't just finish it. They're all made out.
Yeah. Ron's been telling me about the world years, I was just softball stuff knocked down.
I'll do it.
One I see every day, well, not every day, but often enough, I want to take it down, it's the one right there at Benjamin and Corbett. That thing's getting really bad. It was so faded.
This golf that I haven't looked on there yet, I've been trying twice to.
I saw that yellow banana boat in your backyard. You still have it?
Boats, they come with them. I sold our boat.
I heard.
I'm out of a boat now. Now I gotta find a new boat. It's hard to sell that boat after.
But there's some out in the water that if you can pump, you know, you can get the bilge emptied out.
Okay, all right, ready?
Yes,
Sure.
you're on.
Town of Malabar regular town council meeting Monday, June 3rd, 2019 shall commence at 7:30. Please stand for our prayer and pledge.
As we bow our heads to pray, may each of us thank our Creator for the privilege of living in and serving our community. We ask for wisdom and guidance in any and all decisions. We also ask for the protection of members of our armed forces, pray for their safe return, and give strength to the loved ones. These we ask in thy name.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do a roll call, please.
Council Chair Mayor Patrick T. Riley.
Here.
Vice Chair Steve Ribbit.
Here.
Council members Grant Ball,
Here.
Brian Bale,
Here.
Dick Horn,
Here.
Danny White,
Here.
Town Administrator Matt Stinnett,
Here.
Town Attorney Carl Bone.
Here.
I'm the Town Clerk Treasurer Debbie Franklin.
Thank you. And the fire chief is excused tonight. And also Drew Thompson from planning, from Park. Trails and Greenways, sorry. All right, any additions or deletions or changes to the agenda?
I have two items, Mayor. There's a petition to remove the stop sign at Benjamin and Corey. Local residents are complaining that it's a bit of a nuisance. The packet's there in front of you on that. So discussion and direction on that. And then the second one, I have Bill Barrett here tonight. He's a grant writer that I would like to engage his services for the remainder of the year and moving forward. Discussion and direction on that as well.
Is there a presentation?
Right, he's gonna come up and talk.
Okay, we'll add that between, right after the attorney. Then I guess five will be the Benjamin sign. entertain a motion for the approval of the regular town council meeting minutes of May 20th, 2019.
Move. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just have one note on page 3, item number 3, the comprehensive plan amendment. 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. One starts with CM Rivet, where the last line in that paragraph, it's, I think, the exact opposite of what I said. I think there's a not missing from there. So we've not been elected to take wealth from the town people and give it to developers. I certainly don't think we should. I don't think I said that.
Okay, where are we?
Okay, page 3, item number 3, .comp plan.
Okay,
Paragraph that starts with CM Rivet,
right.
last sentence.
Probably not, and Ben is elected.
Okay,
Anything else?
I'll make that correction.
All in favor as amended?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Right, move on to the attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll preface my report by saying, and Debbie reminded me that I said this several years ago, that no good deed goes unpunished. Back in, I guess, the latter part of 2016, there was a vehicle accident which damaged the culvert on 2885 Weber Road. And the vehicle's insurance company stepped up and wanted to pay for the damage. And what happened was, we have a code that says the homeowner is responsible for the culvert that services their driveway. But we were having a lot of difficulties with this homeowner stepping up and taking the check and applying it to getting it repaired. So what happened was the town decided that it would receive the insurance funds and make the repairs. And the code allows us to do that, doesn't obligate us, but we felt like it was the right thing to do because we were not getting any cooperation from the homeowner. Well, fast forward a little bit to January 2017, allegedly a visitor of that homeowner was injured and blamed the town and the contractor for the injury. And well, we just got served with a lawsuit. So they are suing the town for negligence and CDM Trucking for negligence. We have forwarded the complaint, like we should, to our insurance defense carrier, and they will be handling the matter. To me, it's a load of whatever you want to call it, okay, but, they have the right to sue, and that's what they did. So, it's one of those things where they figure that they'll sue everybody in sight, and somebody will pay up.
If I may, that's right down, not far from my house. I went down and looked at it at the time. The visitor broke an ankle. He just stepped in a hole, a little bit of a pothole, that I'm not sure had anything to do with the reconstruction of the driveway, but it was on the town's right of way. I don't think the two things were related. That was my thought at that time. I'm no expert. But I'm saying that there happened to be a little hole. There are holes in my yard too. Got a little, maybe an armadillo dug it, for all I know. But that's what happened. They stepped, the hole, the grass was level, stepped in the hole, broke an ankle.
Those are the facts that will come out in litigation, and we'll see what happens in the defense of it, that's all. And other than that, we are quiet.
Have they stated what damages they're asking?
No, in Florida, all you have to do is say your damages exceed $15,000. That makes you go to circuit court. That's going to be all part of the discovery to see what her alleged damages are. What's a broken ankle worth? I mean, that's kind of what the deal is. So. But interestingly enough, I don't know if it was in the town's right of way or not, or if it was in part of the the area that she was supposed to maintain, but they did not, she did not name her relative in the lawsuit as the responsible party. So that could
Right
be,
next to the driveway, but where does the driveway begin and the other?
that all comes out in the litigation.
Right.
So that's why we have insurance, guys.
All right, thank you.
That's all I have, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the presentation.
Bill, you want to come up?
Good evening. My name is Bill Barrett. Thank you for having me here this evening. I give you a background about myself a little bit. I am, for 23 years, the last 23 years, I've done government relations work here in the state of Florida. Lobbyist in Tallahassee, grant writer as well. And I've worked with a number of local governments around the state, from Pembroke Park to the city of Okeechobee, Moorhaven, St. Cloud, the list goes on, counties as well. Most of the time when I'm brought in on stuff, it is for funding. That's the big thing that all city councils want is outside funding, and most don't know how to obtain it. So what I do is I come in and I sit down with the town administrator, with the council members. I identify what your needs are, what your priorities are, and then put together a plan on how to get you to the end goal to accomplish your priorities. We look at whatever grant funding will be available to you. We look at water management districts when it comes to like drainage issues, which I know, speaking of town administrator, that's one of the big issues is drainage. Working with St. John's on that as well. Safer grants for firefighters and police, COX grants for police, 319 grants for stormwater, economic development grants, parks grants. I know I'm forgetting a bunch, and I did provide a partial list of some funding of the projects that I worked on. I heard y'all discussing it, and the helicopter seems to be the one that always gathers the attention. And yes, that was for a static display at a city that wanted to include it in their Veterans Park as a memorial to their Vietnam veterans. And oddly enough, heard somebody say, well, wouldn't know how to fly it. The weirdest phone call that I had was when I finally got hold of people up there, and they said, do you want one that flies? They would have given me one that flies. I said, no, thank you, we want a permanent display. Done that with, there's a perfect example, totally off the wall, but it was something that was important to that community. Figured out a plan on how to do it, put it together and did it. There's other ones listed on there for like the turnpike interchanges. There's two of those. About $28 million just on those two interchanges. There was another one that community wanted an interchange. The trip counts did not justify the Turnpike Authority putting in an interchange. So it took about 2 years worth of negotiations with them and going through a few different programs that they have. And the city ended up, for $28 million, the city put in $2 million. And pulled in $26 million, and we did the first half of the interchange, the first half of the diamond. Phase 2 is the second half of the diamond. The project costs are less than that because we planned for the future. And there was about 12 years in between phase 1 and phase 2, but it was planned that way. But in planning for the future, you say, we're going to buy all the right-of-way right now, because it'll never be cheaper than it is today. We're going to do the engineering on it for the bridge going across it, for what we're going to do for the full interchange when the time comes. So that then when we came forward and it got time to do phase 2, as you can see, phase 2 is a lot less in cost because we anticipated the phase 2 costs in phase 1, and we did as many of them as we could. A lot of what I like to do is phase projects. You'll see a number of projects on there from water and sewer projects, stormwater projects, economic development projects. You'll see a lot of, or several phase 1s, phase 2s, phase 3s. Most of the time I'll break them down because I like to say it like this. If you tell me you have a $100 million problem with roads, let's say, and I bring you a check for $100 million, you're not going to be able to do all those roads this year anyway. Even if you had all the money in the world, you can't tear up your whole city at once. So pretty much any project that you do in this manner is going to be phased in. And the phasing that we do most of the time is by funding. So you'll see, for instance, there's an economic development project on there.
900,000 on phase one, 300,000 on phase two. So we work them through as much money as we can get for each phase. That's what that phase becomes. If you have X amount of dollars that you've set aside, we'll bring in X amount of dollars from outside from grant funding. That's how we determine what that phase is. If I can bring in extra grant money, you can expand the phase. But the key is to have a master plan for what you're doing. In this case, just for argument's sake, let's talk about your drainage. You have a master plan that you say we want to enact. It's going to take us a decade to enact it. Just be arbitrary and capricious with it. Then what you're going to have to do is say, okay, we've got a plan. Now we've got to eat the elephant in bites. We've got to make forward progress on that every year. But that's one whole drainage plan. And we're going to break that up into 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 phases. However many phases you need to break it up in order to bring the funding in year to year is how we would break it up. Most of the funding that is available is for what I call bricks and mortar and what they call results. A decade ago, if they got me planning money, they've got me money to do a master plan. Today, that's not really feasible. What the state and the feds also, they look at it and they say, there were too many years of grants paying for studies. Then the study got done, it's a beautiful study, everybody loved it, and then they put it on the shelf, and the shelf's where it sits for 10 years. And so the government just wasted all that money on that plan that never gets enacted. So there's been a changeover in that to say, look, if you guys will come to the table as a local government and say, this is our plan, and we've done the engineering, we've done the master planning, whatever the case may be, now the state, the feds, will partner with you for verifiable results. We're going to retain this water. We're going to do nitrogen loading removal out of this water. Whatever it is, we're going to put 500 feet of pipe on the ground, something that they can actually see that works and is in the ground, bricks and mortar. So the first thing that you have to figure out is your planning side, and that is pretty much all local now. When we're dealing on the planning side, on water, stormwater, there are opportunities to partner with, say, St. John's. While they can't provide you money to pay for your plan, they can provide you expertise, they can provide you data, they can provide you the assistance of their engineers. So they can work with you to provide certain things to you that you wouldn't end up turning around having to pay for. So while they can't write you a check, and then you go hire somebody to do it, they can help provide that information for you as well. Over the last, like I say, 23 years, well over $100 million worth of outside funding has been brought into clients. And it all comes down to what your needs are. And if you would like to go forward, let me give you a little bit of a time frame so you understand what you're working with here. All grants are working on funding cycles. So, for instance, the 319 grant, the funding cycle closed a couple of months ago on it. So we would actually be preparing for the next funding cycle, which would be the beginning of next year, beginning of 2020. There are some that the funding cycles are September, October of this year. We would be able to work to meet that funding cycle of October, September of this year for those. So what I would like to do, if you guys would like to move forward, is of course meet with you all individually, meet with you in a workshop format so that we can discuss in depth what you're looking for, what your priorities are, and how we can get there together. And then that way I can take that as planning on my end as well. I can understand the needs of your local community because while many years ago I did live in Brevard County and I'm familiar with Malabar, I absolutely don't know all of your local needs. That's what you all provide. What I provide is the understanding of the state and federal funding cycles and how to get funded. Because a lot of times there will be grant applications put in, read through it, sounds great, but it didn't hit any of their keys to get funded. To take that same application, rework it, hit the right buzzwords, hit the right catchphrases, put it in the right posture for what they want to fund, and then you can look at getting it funded in that way. So understanding what your local needs are and that you have a plan that you would like to enact. whether that be for stormwater, parks, fire department, economic development, any of those above. I will say this as well, in talking with the town administrator about this. My contract, I gave a contract to Matt to show you all. My contract is a $10,000 fee up front and 7% on the back end of any grants that I get. That's will cover the entire calendar year, well, your budget year, won't say calendar year, your budget year. Now, understanding that this is June, so you're really coming right towards the end of your budget year. What I would say is, this would be for the first year, we would get everything together, we would write the grants, we would submit them to you, because you have to approve them before they can be submitted. And then we would submit those into the funding cycle, so that we would look at the 2020 funding cycle to start receiving money for grants. And then going forward every year, that would be what I would propose, the same thing to do again. And then that way, unlike lobbying, where we're not allowed to take contingency fees, it's illegal in the state of Florida, with grants, we're absolutely allowed to. So, by and large, that $10,000 puts skin in the game from everybody on both ends. And then I don't really make any money unless you make money. If you make money, I make money. If you don't make money, I don't make money. So by doing it in that manner, it really puts the emphasis on me to say, hey, go get these guys grants. Because then that way I get paid as well when you get paid. That's been my business model for a long time. Instead of coming in and saying, you know, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, whatever that is, it's performance-based that way. So I wanted to cover that as well. I've been talking for a while now, and I think I'll stop. I'm more happy to answer any questions, or if there's any other topics that I didn't touch on, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Any questions?
Your history. I see this, this list of grants. I mean, there's a few big hits here. But, I mean, what is your hit rate? If you engage with the town, are you expected to? I mean, would you expect to hit 3 or 4 of these? A dozen? What would you expect for a town like this?
What I would say is that right off the bat, I would need to identify exactly what you want to go after, okay? Because if it does neither one of us any good for me to just yes you, to say, oh yes, we can go after that grant, okay? So to say the success rate, when you talk about stormwater,
drainage and roads are pretty much
fairly certain that within the 1 to 2 year horizon, you would start to get grants returned to you. Grant money returned to you, grants awarded to you. There are some times where in the first year, for various reasons, either there's $3 million total, they rank the projects, they may fund 15 projects, maybe you're 17. That moves you up to the next year. Okay, so when you ask that question, it's sort of a loaded question because my success rate is very good. I can't tell you that I'll have a grant for you in 2 months or 6 months. I can tell you within 1 to 2 years you would start getting grant money in, and like I say, it depends on what your individual needs are, what you can match, because if you can't do a 25% match on a $10 million, why go for $10 million? So it's going to come back down to some of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
I was aware this was coming because the town administrator mentioned it to me this morning, and I asked him some questions. Maybe because of my age, but I think if we don't learn from history, we don't learn, period. We've been through this before. We hired a town administrator whose strength was supposed to be grants, and she never qualified for 1 grant, period. Also, we hired a grant writer who also never produced a grant. We've got a fire department now that is doing very well in producing grants, and it would be welcome to the health 23 years, I asked, where has he worked? Well, cities all over the state. But we do not have one letter from one city recommending him, period. Now, I'm going to say, if we are to consider a contract for this individual, it would be a contract, not an employment. We need to hear from those for whom he has contracted in the past. We can't do anything if we don't know what we're doing, because right now, we can listen to him all day long. Those were awfully big, impressive numbers that I don't give a damn about. Because you're just doing that to impress us. I'm not impressed.
Nick, stay on the topic.
I'm on the topic. I'm not impressed at all. I think we're gonna, he said, he don't get any money if we don't get any money, and yet he said he wants $10,000 up front to begin. That $10,000 I'd love to have. I mean, okay, I'll write grants for $10,000 up front money. I could probably do it
All right,
now.
this is going to be an agenda item that we vote on. This is just a presentation tonight.
Okay, but my point is, we need to know a whole lot more than we know now from those with whom he has done business.
Dan?
Your name was Bill?
Yes, sir.
Bill. I take it you would be working for others at the same time you work with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many others are you under contract with right now?
For grants, or for all contracts, let's say I've got,
For all contracts?
about 8.
About 8. Okay, so, and personally, I don't think $10,000 is out of sight for if we could get some results, okay? And you addressed the time issue, and I understand that things don't happen overnight. We've got two areas that I think we've talked about in the past that we could definitely expect that we might be able to get some grant money for. One that you had in here, evacuation shelter, emergency operations center, multi-use shelter, community center. I know this is a fabulous building right here, but we would like to have a better place, okay? And one of the things we've talked about is a multi-use facility that we could locate maybe near the fire department that would serve the community and give us, I think, a nice facility to meet in for municipal purposes and have employees that would be proud to come to work in such a place. So I'd like to see some effort towards that. The other big one is, Matt and the previous TA and all of us have discussed this, is our big drainage issue in this town, I think, is our outflow and lack of, okay? And we've really looked at possibly taking the major flow off of Corey across Malabar, down Corey, and into eventually Turkey Creek. It's beyond our means to do so. I don't know what such a project would cost. You have to remember that our town's revenue at this point is less than $2 million a year. So when you talk about grant money, and then we talk about the funds that we have to apply with that grant money, it can be a case of diminishing returns sometimes, I think. I'm not sure how much of it's true, but I've heard that our rest area that we put in at the Marie Trailhead here, we probably could have done it ourselves for a little bit less money once we had to do the matching funds and then meet the so-called standards that went with it. Now, I don't know how much of that is true, just what I've been told, okay? So I would look at, first off, I'd like to see those two issues towards the forefront, and we would have to discuss that in the workshop. I don't think that the $10,000 is out of sight, okay? We just,
If it gets results.
if it gets results. I mean, we just spent over $11,000 on an 18-inch culvert that serves nobody.
What was my idea?
I know, but we just did. Okay, I'm staying on topic, and I'm interested in the money, okay?
I mean, we don't have extra money to waste.
Grant
And that
has
was
the
a waste
floor.
in itself.
Grant has the floor.
That's all I had to say, thank you.
Okay, since I've been here, we had a big project that we got a grant for, and it was a bathroom. And where are we?
That's what Dan was talking about.
Where it probably costs us more.
We're north of $100,000 for building something that I swear we could have done as a community effort for $45,000.
That's what I was talking about.
And there were tons of strings attached to it, and the price kept running up and running up. So that's one of the things that I've been thinking about. I don't want to do anything with a grant unless we know there aren't strings attached that's going to help our community more than it costs our community. And I would definitely be willing to sit down at a workshop and talk to you. And yeah, we know we have to pay to get results, but right now, I'm still hurting over, you know, an additional $100,000 per year to the fire department that I don't know where we're gonna come up with the funding for. And now if we did this in this calendar year, we'd be asked for another $10,000 that we already don't have the funds to match with it. So I'm a little concerned about how we pay for this. However, I do realize that if we could get some grants, especially grants that were, you know, close to free for us instead of matching grants that we have to come up with too much of. I know I've talked to Fine, and if we could come up with Florida Inland Navigation, they have money that they would save with us, but everything that they would do would be a 50% grant. We don't have the 50% to match it, so why even try to get it? Because we don't have the 50% to come up with it. And that's one of my concerns, and that would be the concern that I would have in the workshop. How do we pay for what you're gonna bring us to get it done if we can't pay to do the matching?
Right.
And they pretty much stole my wind. I was saying the same topics, but this town definitely needs help with grants. We need funding. And I would really want to sit down in a workshop with this council and you, and of course have some references that we can call, you know, because like anything else, we are stewards of the town's monies. And we have to make sure that if we decide to spend money towards this effort, which I know the wheels of government turn slow and it's going to take a little bit to get a return, but of course, as Grant mentioned, money's tight. So we need to have references that we can call and communicate with. I don't know how that works on Sunshine. I don't think there's anything stopping any of us on an individual basis from calling the people that you provide as references. But I think that's another key thing here as well. As far as getting the references relative to the timing of the workshop, I think is pertinent. So, however, we can work that out, either before or after, however it works out. But I think the workshop's key. So,
Matt, do you have anything else?
Sure, so the direction that I'm kind of looking for is to come back to the next meeting with a budget adjustment proposal that would show that we can fund this based on deferring a couple items within our budget or some areas that we've received additional revenue from this year. I've looked through the budget and I feel confident that we can make this happen. And then we can kind of proceed from there, but wanted to get him in front of you and at least get your questions out there. I think at the same time, we can also provide those references, not speak for you, but so that you have that information as well.
I think we need a workshop before we move to that point, though. I'm afraid, yeah, I think what I'm hearing here is we all need to sit down and discuss it in a different format than this one, and then it needs to come before it.
We'll come up with a priority of what we want to do first. I go to Dick next.
Back to what Matt just said, I think if we can get referrals from people he's worked for, that will help us know if we're making the right decision. That's the thing. As far as learning from history, you mentioned the bathroom over here at the trailhead. It started out at $80,000. but then they had to add a source of water, a well and a pump. They had to, provide also a septic tank system in there, which was over and above the building itself. And that wasn't, in the original planning, those two items weren't considered. We need to start paying attention to details.
My question is, when we're talking about the workshop here, are we talking about including Bill to sit with us in the workshop so we can decide whether this is a viable option? And Bill, you're more than willing to do that?
Absolutely.
I think that's what we should go with.
I think that we should have a workshop and a discussion before we have a vote on it.
Absolutely. Do we want to try to set that
No,
now?
no, we'll let it down here. We already have it on the agenda. Go ahead, Bill.
If I could, to your point, you brought up a point that I was making in my opening as well, the matching dollars. You know, the example you gave was a 50%, a lot of them are 25%. Yeah, if we come up to a point where we say, okay, we want to submit this grant for X, for, you know, a swag grant for stormwater, let's say, and you get a 25% match. If you don't have a 25% match, we can't apply for it. Now, so
apply for the amount
that you can match. Yes, sir. Now, when you, that's in a town this size, and that's like other small ones that are like the city of Moorhaven, for instance, very small like you all. You know, same thing. There were plenty of things that they were available for them, but they didn't have the matches to go with it. So your point was, I wanted to bring it back up again because I was trying to make it too, and I'm glad you did. You know, that's what you have to look at, because if you start looking in out years, there's a possibility to stack grants on top of each other, okay? But you can't start stacking. You've got to start with a match.
Well, I talked to, Fine, I can't come up with the name right now.
Florida Inland Navigation
Yeah,
District.
but I talked to the head of that.
Jerry Jensen?
Yes, Jerry, thank you very much. I talked to Jerry at length one time, and he said, you know, if you have projects, you're overdue for getting the money, so you will get it. And we have to have a 50% match, period. You have to do that.
Right.
But we don't care where that other 50% comes from. So, in our discussion, bring out, if it's possible, can we use grants and grants together? So if somebody does, somebody will do a 75% and somebody else will give us a 10% grant to help that, are those kind of things available and do they happen?
Yes, sir. And that's what I'm talking about when I use the word stacking.
Yes.
Because you get one grant, and then you use part of that grant as a match for the next grant. And you can stack grants on top of each other by using grant funds as a match. There are a few places that they won't allow you to use a grant match, but the vast majority will allow you to stack those. But you still end up in the same place. In order to get that first one or two, you've got to have your local, and then once you get that one or two, then we can say, okay, I can try and stack those two with other ones and use them as the match. Yes, it's very possible to do. And Jerry Sampson's a good guy. I've known Jerry a long time.
Yeah, and he says, we're trying to give you money, but, you know, unless we don't give you half.
Yeah.
The problem,
Jerry will give you a recommendation on me. You can give him a call.
the problem with Jerry's money though is it's so focused.
Yes,
That, you know.
we have one piece of property that we haven't done the work to get.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you all very much. And did y'all come up with a date on it, or is it
No,
not?
it's coming up later.
Okay.
That's on our.
We'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
That way you can take off.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we don't have the sheriff tonight, so we'll go to Trail and Greenways Committee is excused, Park and Rec Board not here, and P and Z is not here. No public comments, so we'll move on to set workshop dates for capital improvement project, roads, and budgeting. So, the one that we have on our calendar presently is June 24th for the usually that's for the budget, and what else is for the 24th?
Referendum questions, impact fees, capital improvement projects,
Yeah.
prioritizing. examples.
Yeah, oh, okay.
All right, so that's one day. Is there any other date?
June 24th?
It's a Monday.
Is it Monday? I'm good for anything.
Yeah, and I see
I
the,
just put Mondays down. Yep, I'll be here.
I see the P and Z meeting.
Got changed.
Yeah.
Because,
I think I won't keep it, let me make it a workshop.
no, it got changed because the chairman couldn't make the 12th. So he moved it to the 10th, and it's a public hearing.
Okay, so P and Z is still on the 10th, or is it
Yes,
maybe
yes.
the 12th?
No, they're the 10th.
I'm on June 24th.
So I guess the 24th it is, but what we can do is we can just split the time up. You know, top level.
What was our schedule last year for doing the budget, because I think.
Not till July.
Yeah, I thought that was about,
Yeah.
right, we had enough time for meetings, so we could use this for
All right,
budget.
the road, well, she put down for, road improvements, and we can put in grants.
Mr. Mayor, if I can't be here on the 24th, I don't know.
It's a workshop.
Yeah, I know, but there's one up there that says how to regulate road improvements with attorney. I don't know if that was one of the discussion items or not.
That's going to be one of the workshops,
Okay, so that's not the 24th.
not necessarily.
All right.
I just don't want it to anyone
Keep it
to
on the
forget.
on the front burner.
Yes, thank you.
That's just topics.
Okay.
We can still talk about it.
Talk about anything more?
Yeah, then in the July meeting, if we have questions, we can bring them up to our first meeting. I guess it'd be July 1st.
July 1st and 15th.
So if there's any questions that arise from the 24th, bring them up. All right, so that's it for June.
Which workshop would you like to have Bill at?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was gonna be,
Say that again.
Which workshop would you like to have Bill at?
Well, we could split it. It can be, it doesn't have to be one item.
have them on the 24th.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he's asking which workshop would you like him to be here at?
On
Yeah.
the 24th of June?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that, let's do.
Yeah, I think it needs to be
Upfront.
soon.
Yeah,
I think
let's
so.
vote on this.
Yeah, we need to push it up.
Yeah, we'd have to incorporate this into the next budget year, which is, we're starting the budget, so, yeah. now-
Correct.
now's the time.
but the council's homework will be bring items that you want for granting, for areas where the grants, priorities. Like, if you can't just say roads, bring what road? Don't say drainage, bring me what drainage.
Give a ditch here.
Yeah. Like, first one I would go after is the Fern Creek one,
Yeah.
that we've been fighting before. So we can try that as our first example, see what happens with that. Okay, so the 24th will be,
7 o'clock, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I show up at 7:30, that, I wasn't paying attention.
all right, thank you.
I will be here, but.
All right, we'll move on to proposed sign ordinance from planning and zoning. Planning and zoning brought a sign ordinance, lawyer went over it, and then council voted to send it back to the ENZ, and this is their final product. So is this discussion, or is this a vote on?
Sorry to interrupt you, but we kind of skipped staff reports.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
if you want
We'll
to
move
talk
back
about it,
up.
so you can-
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
My bad.
Mine's real short. The Rocky Point erosion, we've submitted permits and plans to DEP, so that ball is continuing to roll. The construction plans and the paperwork for transferring Fern Creek have been submitted to DOT as well, so they're going to be moving towards construction on that. And I've been talking with several engineers and kind of narrowing down the scope for the stormwater master plan and inventory we talked about, so that'll be coming up very soon as well. The Malabar Road project with the 3 lanes, we're gonna exchange the park for a pipe under Malabar Road. Those plans have been sent to DOT, and the transfer paperwork of that has also been sent to
What's
them.
going under Malabar Road would be like leaving water to its eventual demise at Turkey Creek, correct?
Right. And the Rocky Point erosion that we had from the hurricanes, those plans have also been submitted to DEP for permitting. So we should be able to go for construction on that soon. That's it.
I thought we were talking about the sign.
No, I forgot staff.
Oh, okay, I'm
All right, Tom?
Good evening. You can see that we had a couple of breakdowns this month, a few things we were a problem with. Everything's back up and running except for the 3 tractors. The one will be up and running tomorrow, hopefully. Roads, we did 19 roads this month. On the ditch cleaning, we did a total of 900 yards of debris removed. We did run the big flail mower up and down some of the main roads that were getting pretty tall. So, took care of that. There were 22 roads that were slope mowed. We took care of all the parks. We did cut back Eschenberg Park for the additional parking that was requested. And fire departments, all public right-of-ways have been done. The school bus stops were done. We did install the new catch basin at Reef Place, so that job is completed. The head wall washout on Corey Road was finished. We repaired the fence at the fire department again. People like to keep running into it. All the signage for Bragg Creek and the trail crossings were replaced, and we did several washouts and we filled them in inside them, so hopefully that will take care of those problems. Questions?
Tom, did we ever pull out that damaged fence from the Fern Creek Park?
No.
Right there at Corey and Malabar Road, somebody ran into it, tore it all up, it's been laying there for a
I'll
while.
take care of it.
And a gentleman called Debbie the other day, and I hadn't talked to him myself, but he lives at the southeast corner of Corey and Atts, and he was wondering why we're doing such a beautiful job on the bus stop across the street from his property, but not the town's right away in front of his property. And Debbie explained to him that we're working just on the intersections. But I looked at his our property there on the roadside of the ditch, and there's at least a 4 to 6 inch drop from the pavement to the ground alongside of, which I can understand why I wouldn't want to get out there with my riding mower either, you know, especially when you're that close to such a steep ditch, you know. And, I know we've talked about this before in some of the other places, but we need to address some of these severe drop-offs we have off the road here and there. Just thought I'd bring it up, and, you know, put it on your list.
Yeah, I had one question too. You went over Appleby with the new magnet, the bumper thing, mountain thing. Did you pull up a lot of debris?
Couple of pieces here and there.
Not much.
How big is your magnet? How wide?
6 feet. 6 feet.
6 feet, okay. I picked up a 2-foot one recently. That's not gonna do you any good.
No,
So I
6
guess
foot.
in my yard. If I may,
Yes.
I've gotten compliments from a lot of the people on Weber Road. I mean, you guys have done a tremendous job all the way from Malabar Road down to where, at least where the Murphys live. And I've been getting quite a lot of compliments. In fact, somebody in Weber Woods flagged me down today to compliment the work you're doing. So I just would like to see the ditches as much as possible along both sides of Apps and Hall going west, so we can get that water going somewhere there. But, and the other thing that's the one comment that's been coming back to me, but I thought of that by myself before anybody even said anything. But the mowing behind Eschenberg Park, was it your folks that mowed back in ways? That's been complimented by everybody. I mean, they say how much nicer it looks. But if you go back much farther than where you are, I think you know, there's some fence down in the grass, and there's some wire there that you get pretty well tangled up in back there. And I don't know when we'll ever be able to clean that up. It's town property. But I don't know what it is, but Public Works has been getting just all kinds of compliments from the people on Weber Road. Be it the park at Eschenberg Park, or be it what the ditches look like down the road. It's really been good. You've been obvious what you're doing, and it looks good. And I'm glad that you did mow that back part there.
Okay, anything else?
I'll reiterate what Mr. Corn said. Yeah, somebody said something about mud all over the road. I said, that mud on the road's a good thing. That means it's coming out of the ditches. And where's all this mud coming from? I said, that's coming out of the back of the dump truck that came out of that ditch right there. And that's, oh, okay, yeah, I'm good with that.
Some of it in my driveway, the joint, I don't know where it came from.
Because, I mean, some of the ditches you clean, I mean, you could just follow it all the way
Oh, yeah.
to Marie
Yeah.
Street, but it was like.
Yeah, it's just, one of the things we do have to address this year in the budget is the body of that dump truck does need to be replaced. It is pretty much rotted away.
Some stop leaving that.
From all the tannic acid in the water.
It's been welded several times.
And we do have a ditch bucket.
Aquatic bucket, yeah.
Aquatic bucket, one great all, but still you can't not
Not a
fill
full, but
the truck full of water. It was just pretty funny the way they reacted.
Well, that new bucket they got that's like a fence
yeah.
thing,
It helps a lot.
water in the truck.
But it still does get water in the truck.
A lot of people are making positive comments.
Yeah.
It's just your presence. It's the.
All right, thank you very much, Tom.
But make sure your hat still fits.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, Debbie, you got anything?
Yeah, the mail vote is underway. We're looking for delivery in early July. In preparation for the budget workshops, I've provided everybody a copy of Table 1 and Table 2 that DOR puts out every year. And Table 1 lists all the cities and the county and what the millage rate and the taxes levied last year and then this year. And I highlighted Malabar on that. And then Table 2 is interesting because, again, it lists all the county departments that levy a tax, but they also list all the cities, so you can see at a glance what the breakdown is in all the communities in Brevard County. In our case, a little bit better than 50% of our residential properties are homesteaded. A large significant portion of the otherwise are, still protected under Save Our Homes. So when you get over here to about the middle of the page is where you see the commercial property. And we don't have very much commercial property that's bringing in tax revenue. But I just wanted to give you that as a little starter information. You get this every year, but I've never explained it for you. Back on Table 1, it also gives the millage that each city levies, so you can see how we are compared to the other cities. The auditors are done as far as we know. Matt got back and had to follow up with a few questions, but we're hoping to have them on the agenda for June 17th for their final presentation of the audit and your acceptance of the 2018 audit, and then we'll get that sent to the state before the deadline on the 30th. That's all I have.
May I ask her a question? And this comes out, I just thought of this. I have been invited by some organization of businesses to join their organization. I won't name things. And they said there are 510 businesses in Malabar that are members of their organization. We have 510 businesses in Malabar?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'll give you that email.
Let's say we're
Next
there.
week or sometime
Yeah.
next week.
The vast majority of our businesses are home businesses.
A line of them or something like that is
Yeah, but there's nowhere close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have about $20,000 in revenue that we get from businesses.
For that reason, I didn't even respond to it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, now we move on to signs. Sorry about that. So P and Z has brought back to council their amended version of the sign ordinance. So that's what we're going to vote on. So,
Actually, we're not, we're looking for you guys to give direction to staff to preferably send it to Carl and finalize it, get it ready for first reading at the next meeting.
I think the substance of what they addressed all their concerns on.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I have one thing that is carried through here, and probably Carl needs to be aware of this. On the very beginning, it starts by definitions, and the first one is abandoned sign. A sign is considered abandoned if the business advertised on that sign is no longer, and the word is licensed. There are no licensed businesses in Malabar. So all of the signs have to come down, because there are no licensed businesses in Malabar. And that may fall through this whole, it may fall through the whole thing. That may show up again.
BGR investigation doesn't.
It is not a license, it's a business tax. The town does not license businesses.
No longer has a BTR.
so just a
Registered,
change the-
recognized, or.
Well, I don't know, but that's wrong, because they don't license us. Town doesn't want to have anything to do with the business,
No longer has a BTR.
just
It's
the
no
money,
longer doing business.
Yeah.
just the money.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for staff to get, to move forward with the
I'll
ordinance.
make that motion.
I'll second.
I've been through every bit of this thing.
Who was the second?
Brian was second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried 5-0. Okay, now we're gonna move on to appoint voting delegate for the Florida League of Cities Annual Conference. We have two council members going, I believe, Danny and Dick Corn.
And I nominated Danny to be the voting delegate.
Okay, let me finish. So what happens is we have a form to fill out, and there can only be one name on it, so we'll need a motion for
I've done it before.
our Malabar
It's a
representative.
good form to do it.
All right, I have a motion for Danny. Any other?
I'll second.
Okay, do we have another motion for anyone else? Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. Was easy? All right, thank you, Carl.
You want me to stay around for the last item, last act, you started?
Oh, that's right, you're right. I wrote it down. I have not. Okay, the last item is Benjamin Road and Corey Road stop sign removal. We have a petition in front of us. We can just make a discussion, or we can do action on this
I
item.
suggest we just discuss this because basically we need to get the sheriff's department involved in that. People are screeching off from the stop sign and all. There's only one other in Malabar on Corey or Weber Road. There's only one connector street that there's not a stop sign at the corner of. That's at the corner of Old Mission and Weber. And I think Councilman Bale wanted to add that to the list when those stop signs were put up. And I went down the other day before I even knew this was coming up and checked all of the roads. And any road that connects to Malabar, to Corey or Weber Road that feeds onto other roads, there is a stop sign at that intersection, whether it's a three-way or a four-way. And I was going to bring up or recommend that the next meeting we discuss putting the stop signs at Old Mission. It's not Old Mission. Yeah, at Old Mission. That's the only connector that doesn't have a stop sign at Corey or Weber.
Well, the petition is to remove
Benjamin.
I know that the suggestion is to move it because it makes noise when people stop there and then start up again. But, you know, just because people are starting up and screeching their tires, they're breaking the law. So what do we do? Take the law away so they don't have a law to break? Well, I think we need to get the sheriff to police that. That stop sign is there for a reason.
I'm just gonna ask, are they just talking about removing the stop signs that are for Corey traffic?
Corey and.
The Benjamin stop sign will still be there.
Right.
But I would not want to remove any of the stop signs on Corey or Weber. You don't live on Corey or Weber, you don't know what's going up and down that road.
Danny has the floor.
The only reason I would, put off a vote on this is, okay, we've got a petition from people that want it removed. I think there may be people on Corey that don't want to see it removed.
Right, exactly.
Because at least if nothing else, although it may produce some noise, it does slow some traffic down also. Supposedly.
It's a safety mechanism.
Yes.
Any stop sign is a safety mechanism.
So,
Steve?
Yeah,
I'm right with, that's exactly right. We need to hear, you know, all of a sudden we got a petition of people that don't want it.
And we got
How
47,
many people do want it?
47 on this one, so.
Yeah, but how many people want it? We don't have, nobody's circulated another petition saying people that don't want it, so. I would like to hear from
Steve
them.
has.
yeah, I just want to know, that's the border of Malabar and
Yeah.
Grand Valkyria, is that solely our decision?
Yes.
It is our intersection.
We own the whole width of Benjamin.
It's the same thing as the one at Race Road on Weber.
Which is a good thing in this scenario. In other scenarios, not so cheap.
Okay.
You got anything, Carl?
just remember stop signs are not for speed.
Primary for.
Safety.
For speed breaker, they're for safety.
Safety.
The safety.
So when we discuss it, we're talking about safety, not speed.
If anybody here would want the stop signs out, and I know that Councilman Bale was here when we voted to put those signs there. And the first person that blew the stop sign at the corner of Weber and Atch was me. Billy Hammer was sitting there when I did it, and he and I had a discussion about that.
Do you want to put it on the next agenda, or what do you, what's?
I think we ought to just,
Leave it as
Thank
a
you for the
discussion.
concern.
Next agenda.
we don't need it on the agenda.
Discussion.
It's a public safety measure.
I'm just asking, listen. Discussion at the next, okay, discussion for the next agenda.
Not a motion, but a discussion.
Discussion.
Okay. And can we pass this on to the sheriff's department to be aware that there has been a complaint about people using excessive speed? Take off from the stop sign.
I would, could we use the mailboat, Debbie, as a way to let people know that this is even a discussion item?
It would be too late.
Well, yeah, that issue.
Well, just because this petition has been.
No, what I mean is, our next meeting is July 1st.
Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't mean we have to act on this anytime soon.
We don't have to have done it ever.
Yeah, the
Right.
June.
I would ask one thing, has this been forwarded to the Bard County Sheriff's Department that enforces this? Could we,
No, it has not been.
could we do that? Would that be what everybody thinks, should give this to the BCSO?
Sure.
Because that's the reason they're complaining, is the cops aren't doing their job.
That's right.
We could postpone this until the second meeting in July and do an article in the mailboat.
Just a short article, let people know that,
What do you think
that
about
there are
the
people
stop
that have
sign?
asked for the stop sign to be removed. And if you feel one way or the other about this, please let us know, you know? That's all.
All right, so then, we will not have it on our agenda next.
So July 15th agenda?
After the meeting.
Okay.
I see this as more of an enforcement issue.
Yeah,
I do too.
that's how I read it.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, anything else from, yes?
it has been my.
Hold on, you can't do that.
Okay.
You need to come up to the podium, and you need to state your name and address.
Okay,
And you're supposed to fill out a card if you want to speak on an agenda item.
I understand that, and I'm sorry that I didn't, but my name is Susan Shortman, and I do live in Melbourne at 2240 Ivy Lane. I have experienced that stop sign. I did not know it was there. And I did the same thing. I did not blow through it. I hit the brakes and came to a rather abrupt stop. I was glad I didn't have one of those little insurance things that check how fast you brake. But I did not know there was a stop there. I was not expecting a stop. And all of a sudden, boom, there was a stop. And I think that's true for a lot of people who are traveling Quarry Road to avoid the US 1 Malabar Road 20-minute wait. They don't realize there's going to be a stop there. You're
It's a
cruising
traffic
along.
control device that's been there for several years.
Yes, it has, but they haven't traveled down that road, is what I'm saying. So for people who are new to that road, they don't expect that stop sign. And when they get to the stop sign, it's very late. And it's not a four-way stop sign, so they're really not expecting anything. You know, maybe a stop ahead sign would facilitate that.
That's a possibility.
And not,
I was thinking that, we should just talk about
okay,
this.
well, that was my point, was that people don't know there's a stop sign. By the time you see that stop sign, at the rate of speed you're traveling that road with traffic,
Which is 35 miles an hour.
yes, that's what I said, at the rate of speed that you're traveling that road with traffic, when the guy in front of you smashes on his brakes, you're all over the road trying not to hit him. But that was my suggestion.
Thank you. Speed.
Yes, we do not want a tailgate.
More speed.
It would kill my commercial
All
license.
right, now,
Good night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I accept the opportunity.
All right, we'll move on to, council reports. So Ryan, your first minute.
Nothing.
Steve? Grant?
Well, everybody realize what the date is? It's hurricane season.
Fertilizer.
Yeah, well, but I think that this is the time to, and again, in the next mail vote, I hope we have something about hurricane. I should have written one for this, damn it. But yeah, I didn't think, yeah. But anyway, it's hurricane season coming up, and I think we ought to take that into some of our considerations with what the town's doing. I think at our next workshop that we have with the Public Works, we should be addressing what is our procedure going to be for hurricanes coming up. And I think we ought to put it out in the next opportunity we have to the public about hurricane season and what they should do. And there's plenty of information out there for people, but we've got how many new residents now in Malabar? We've got quite a few.
21 households.
21 households, 21 people could have come from Louisiana. No, they didn't know about her.
No,
They can't afford it.
Yeah, but that's, you know, I just think that we all need to be aware of hurricane season because we, the whole community of Malabar, have been lucky with hurricanes. Our luck can always change.
Thank you. All right, Dan?
Not much. I did write an article I gave Debbie for the mail vote, and I was surprised when I took this, when I was lucky enough to get elected to this position and started to learn a little bit about the town's revenue. I was shocked at how little of the town's revenue actually came from the millage that I paid. And I wanted to try to provide a little education in that regard. I might not make many friends in that regard either, but I did want to let people know that of the 1.8 or 1.9 million I think that we had for revenue last year, less than 500 of it came from the property taxes that we pay. And the difference between that and the revenue that we make is not likely to change much, you know. And that's why things like Jeff talked about a lot last year, and this gentleman Bill that came here, you know, we could use some help. And so I was glad to submit that article. I hope I don't get any burning torches or crosses in my front yard for it. But
I hear you blowing.
I mean it with the best of intentions, so.
I think you're spot on. So.
Thank you.
Okay, Dick?
I didn't come prepared with anything to say tonight, but I want to pick up on what Councilman Ball was saying. Go back to, 2004, when we had the really bad hurricanes, and we set up a hurricane rescue kind of area in the park next to the fire department.
We're prepared to do that again.
So if we're prepared to do that again, Brian, so you know where all my tents are. We can use those to set them up. We need to have somebody or designate an event who will be the person in charge, because we have some questions in 2004, like, two ladies shared a ride up there, and they both was gonna get water, and one of the gentlemen in charge there wouldn't give one of them water because he says, oh, you two of you, we only get one thing of water in the car, and she left there crying. So we need to, how do I want to say this? Establish a chain of command in the event of a hurricane reaction. And it might be the public safety director for the town, it might be the fire chief, for all I know. That probably would make sense.
Doesn't town charter address that during emergencies if the mayor is the head of state? That's the only time you're non-titular, is during an emergency.
Okay, anything else? Okay. I don't have anything either, so without. I always forget the word.
Without objection.
Objections.
I haven't seen your article, but what I think it is, that's very good. Same thing I was saying here.
Get out of here in 30 minutes.
Jim, how you been?
I'm doing pretty good.
I thought about you the other day, I saw a news article about somebody that had